It's time for the Daily Planet podcast show. So sit back, relax, and give us a go. Scott and Matt and maybe a guest have undertaken an epic pod quest. We're gonna ramble on about movies and books and television and directors and film festivals and this really long list of stuff that I know nothing about, but they gave it to me and they really wanted me to read through it. And that's all I can really say about it, but it's gonna be great. Okay, start the show.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Planet podcast, your weekly podcast for all things movies, TV, books, and anything else we feel like talking about. I'm your host, Scott Daly, and I'm joined as always, well not as always, because Matt is not here today. Matt is missing because his wife is having a baby in like 8 hours. But James Gentry is here.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, James. How you doing?
Good to be subbing in temporarily for Matt, and excited to continue this new idea of ours, and yeah, looking forward to some discussion for sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're not just subbing in though, Gentry, because you're on the council for the Kryptonian Collection, which is what we're doing today.
Kryptonian Collection Council. Let's do this.
Yeah, because your movie Jaws got in last month.
We get a vote.
So it is in.
Yes.
So you get to vote now. And your vote means even more now because Matt is not here.
It does.
So your vote is super powerful today.
Most important thing I'm doing all week, by far.
All right. So we have a special guest who is nominating a film today, because that's how these things work. Adrian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on here. I'm really excited today to talk about Jaws 2.
Yes.
It's the only way you can follow up Jaws. It's the only way.
It's the only way. Unless I just wanted to jump straight to Jaws the Revenge and make everyone mad at my first appearance here.
Well, it would give me a really easy decision on my vote. I'll say that.
It'd be a 5-minute show. Just no, don't tell us anything. Goodbye.
There is not a single thing you can say right now that can convince me that I should vote for that movie. Yeah, so we are doing the Kryptonian Collection, which, as we discussed last month, is kind of our custom list of the best as far as movies are concerned. The way this works is someone comes on, this time it's Adrian, to nominate a movie. He gives his arguments for the movie, then we discuss it for about half an hour or so, and then at the end, us on the council, normally a council of 3, today a council of 2, will vote and decide if the movie gets in. You know, we have 3 people, so there won't be a tie. So if there happens to be a tie, we're gonna have to figure out what to do. I do know Matt told me what his vote would have been prior to any arguments from Adrian, so I do know what he would have voted from the beginning. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess. Adrian, why don't we start with you letting us know what movie you're nominating, and then maybe summarize it for us real quick.
Well, I'm happy to nominate Raising Arizona by the Coen brothers to be accepted into this wonderful collection of films that it seems very lonely with the one movie at the moment. But Raising Arizona is really difficult to do. So I'll say the basic. You've got very, very young and raw, but terrific Nicolas Cage as a career criminal who ends up getting married to a police officer in Arizona, and they end up wanting to start a family of their own, fall into some troubles, and decide to take part of a large, extensive family and have it become their own, and just their trials and tribulations that they go through in the normal Coen brothers way of things.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is a movie I saw. I think this is only the second time I've seen it. I saw it once years ago, and I liked it a lot. So I was very happy to revisit this movie. And I think, Gentry, you had never seen it, right?
Yeah, it was the first time for me as well. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I think that's part of what I like about this thing so much, is by letting other people nominate films, we are getting to experience films that we've maybe never seen before, and that's cool. We get on the second one, we get someone who's never experienced a film before like this. So yeah.
The interesting thing about Raising Arizona is that out of all the Coen brothers films, it seems like it's the one that so many people, right up there with Blood Simple, that the majority of people haven't seen for whatever reason. Like, more people have seen the Lady Killers, but they haven't seen this entry.
Oh, man.
So that's what I don't understand. It's surprising.
Yeah, it really
Lady
is.
Killers was the Coen brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Well,
my lord.
they did the remake, which was just
Yeah, Tom
we won't
Hanks.
talk about it exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest.
which is a shame.
I've never seen Lady Killers because I turned it on and spent 25 minutes on it, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't watch this movie.
It's an entirely different discussion, but definitely watch the original one with Alec Guinness, because that's a fantastic film.
Okay.
Oh man, nice.
All right. So Adrian, why did you pick this movie?
Well, since you guys started out with Jaws, it got me thinking about certain directors that deserve to have films in the collection. I mean, Spielberg, of course, is obviously one. You think of people like Orson Welles, but there's just so many various directors out there that I felt that the Coen brothers needed to be put in there. They needed to be represented somehow, which the crazy thing about the Coen brothers, with all the films that they have, if you were to ask like 10, 15 people what their top 5 favorite Coen brothers movies are, they're going to have just really, really weird lists that aren't going to match up. You might have 1 to 2 movies that lots of people agree upon, but they're not going to be in the same place. And it's just because their movies vary so wildly that I thought that they had to be in here.
Okay. So then why Raising Arizona if you're picking a Coen movie? Because like I like this movie a lot, but
Yeah.
the thing that did surprise me was if we're gonna pick this movie is the Coens, I'm gonna pick this one. Why?
Well, it's I know it sounds weird. It's their second movie, and there's so many people who usually get judged by their sophomore effort, and the fact that the Coen brothers were able to basically hone lots of their staples that are in their later films in this movie, that not only does it set so many things up, but it's also one of the funniest, one of the most optimistic and hopeful compared to all the other ones. I mean, yes, they do hit their apex several films later, but Raising Arizona is so important to all the films that they do in the future, as well as just little different techniques that other directors over time end up putting into their film language, basically.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think, like I said, it'd been so long since I've seen this movie, I didn't remember the ending. So I was kind of surprised by how optimistic the end of this film is. You know, you think Coen Brothers, you think dark, black comedy, or just really intense drama that is super depressing. And yeah, this is a really optimistic movie. I mean, it has those dark comedic moments in it, for sure. But it's overall a very positive movie. And that was really surprising to me.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the. I know it's weird to jump to the end, but since you mentioned it, there was a piece that I wrote for the people who haven't seen it. There's the movie's wall to wall with narration at different points, but it's not narration that's done obtrusively. It's probably some of the best use of narration in film that I can think of in the last 30, 40 years, because it actually moves the film along. But there's just a small piece at the end while he's describing this vision that he may or may not be having, where he's describing the place that he's seeing as where all parents are strong and wise and capable, and all children are happy and beloved.
Yeah.
Which kind of flies in the face of so many other Coen Brothers things that you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. So, Gentry, you said this was the first time you've seen this movie. You've seen most, but not all, of the Coen films. So, did this movie surprise you? What was your, I guess, overall thoughts on it?
It did surprise me, and most likely, a lot of it was kind of because it had a little bit more of a positive vibe towards it, and it did seem like it was trying to go towards something good, which I think a lot of them do in more subtle ways or more roundabout ways. And this was what I liked about this was it was pretty straightforward. And sometimes when I'm watching a Coen Brothers movie, sometimes they can get confusing at some parts, and you almost have to put it together, rewatch it. This was the good thing about this was it was entertaining. It was early, and I like the word you use, raw Nicolas Cage. It's the Nicolas Cage that I love, that we love, and that I kind of miss. But also, it's a movie that's a lot easier to follow. But it's one of those where I feel like you can notice something different every time you see it, which I particularly like, with certain styles. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a very enjoyable experience on my first go around. I thought Holly Hunter was phenomenal. I thought
She's fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's so good.
I was wondering if she got nominated for anything.
No,
No,
unfortunately.
but yeah, I just thought, I was like, man, what is she up to? Because dear Lord, like if I were like this age in the 80s, 1987, watching this at the movie theater, I'd be like, I'd probably have like a crush on her or something. She was just like, I don't know, just had that confidence to her. They kind of, and they were just such a good opposite type of balance, and their chemistry worked for a lot of the film. And you got to see some early John Goodman as well. And I don't, his friend in the, I don't know his name, the other actor that's with him,
William
Forsythe.
yeah, there you go. I honestly, I don't remember. I recall the first movie when I saw him, and it was definitely not in the 80s. So it was just like interesting to see all these actors, at a younger age. And definitely, there's still a couple of movies that I need to see that they've made, including, Hail Caesar, which came out recently. But overall, I can definitely put this, in my top few.
Yeah,
Definitely see it again.
Yeah, I think you touched on some of the characters, and I think that's what the Coen brothers are most known for, is making these extremely unique, very interesting characters. And I think this movie is no exception. Yeah. Holly Hunter's character, Ed, is fascinating to me because the movie kind of starts off where she seems like the only normal one. The way the story is structured, she comes off as very straight-laced and normal. But throughout the course of the movie, she's just as crazy as everyone else is.
Crazier, really.
Yeah, like
my favorite part with her is when he's doing the impromptu robbery of the convenience store, and she's reading the book to Nathan Jr. and just starts saying that son of a bitch just slowly each time until she gets out of the car, and you see her through the window of the convenience store just yelling, "That son of a bitch! You son of a bitch!" And then goes around the side, and Nicolas Cage just very straight faced, and he goes, "I need you to hurry it up a little bit. I'm in Dutch with the wife."
Oh yeah,
that whole robbery scene was just fantastic. Every part of how that played out, and it
really was. It was so simple, but it's so effective.
All these scenes, they start at a certain level, and then they just escalate past the point of ridiculousness.
Yeah,
but it doesn't matter. Like, you're just completely along for the ride the entire time.
But everything's working in sync. The actors are still working within their characters. The camera, just how it moves along from everywhere. But then even the little details, like the fact that when he's in the convenience store, when he starts out, right as he's getting ready to do the robbery, you've got the music playing of the theme that runs throughout the entire movie. Then when he gets outside, it goes into the big full score orchestra. And then when he ends up at the supermarket, way blocks away, it jumps back to the music for a second, and then goes straight into the full score again.
Yeah. That I didn't even pick up on that. That's a really good catch. Yeah, you're right. Everything throughout this is working together to make all this completely outlandish stuff just work totally. Like, I think a worse actress than Holly Hunter makes Ed's character, like, you lose believability in her because she kind of switches. She's kind of manic and switches between two different extremes. But her performance just completely pulls that off. And the same with Nick Cage. I want to talk about Nick Cage for a minute here because I love him. And it's like some of the most frustrating thing in the world because I think Nick Cage has like 3 levels of performance. He has his really well acted, powerful, like dramatic performances. It's Leaving Las Vegas, Adaptation, those type of movies. He's got his absolutely like insane performances like in Face Off and those movies. And then he's got his performances where he really just completely phones it in. That's like National Treasure and all those terrible, awful movies he did because he spent all his money on houses. But this performance is kind of like halfway between like the well acted, powerful drama thing and the absolutely bonkers, insane performance. And it struck me like how much like pathos this character has. Who's like an insane character with like ridiculous hair and like comedic facial expressions. Like how much you care about him and his struggles throughout this whole thing was remarkable to me, and I think that's all on the back of Nick Cage.
Well, in the crazy thing about this movie is the fact that it almost wasn't Nick Cage.
Really? I didn't even know that.
Kevin Costner auditioned 3 different times to play H.I.
That would have been awful.
It's a completely different movie. In the same Ed, they originally offered it to Kate Capshaw.
I'm not even who is that?
Kate Capshaw is she's in damn it.
I don't know who that is.
She's not from Temple of Doom, right?
She is.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, of course. Duh. Wow, that wouldn't have been good either. She can't pull that off.
No,
yeah.
So it's funny because they originally
have been a Coen Brothers movie.
No. But they wrote it originally the part of Ed for Holly Hunter, because when they were originally doing Blood Simple, they saw Holly Hunter in a stage play and wanted to offer her the main part. And she said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I actually have something else that I'm working on. I have a prior engagement, but you should talk to my roommate, who was Frances McDormand."
Oh, shit.
That's how they got her to be in that movie. And they were like, wow, we really need to repay her back somehow. So they wrote this part with her in mind.
Oh, that's really cool. So has Holly Hunter appeared in any other Coen movies?
Yeah, she's in Oh Brother.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
duh. Okay.
Right.
But Nick Cage has not. And the thing I do know about this movie is they did not get along during filming.
No.
And that is why Nick Cage has never and probably will never be in another Coen Brothers movie.
When you say in an interview that somebody runs things like an autocratic society, that usually doesn't get you invited back.
Which it's such a shame to me too, because I think he works so well in the type of things that they write, and I think he would be good in a Coen movie.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer that. I blame Nick Cage for it completely. Because
what was his problem?
Like he wanted input into the process, and the Coens don't.
No,
they're just very particular in their vision and their way of doing things, and they're the directors. They have the right to do that. And he wanted to be more involved, and they kept butting heads all throughout filming.
But they gave him his hair. That was the
that's
thing
fair. Yeah.
That he came in with all these different things, and they're like, nope, we're not going to let you do it. And he said, but I've got this idea with the hair, and they're like, if we give him this hair idea that he has, then he'll feel like he won some small battle.
That's fantastic.
It didn't work though. He still wanted more. That's the old expression. If you give Nick Cage wacky hair,
he'll take everything else.
He's always going to want more. Always coming back for more.
So the other thing I really liked, this whole movie kind of like there's 2 specific moments in it when H.I. Nick Cage's character mentions that he is having dreams that at least we know one of them turns out to be something that's actually happening in the real world. But the whole movie feels very dreamlike. Just through the tone, through the setting, the way it's shot, it's like very overlit. Like the desert that they live next to looks fake. It doesn't really look like real desert. The mobile home they live in is huge. That was crazy to me. That like, and you could argue that that's just because they needed to get a camera into the rooms, but I think that's intentional. It's enormous looking. Like it's not realistic at all.
Well, and H.I. even says in his in the final voiceover where he mentions that he feels like he's fleeting reality as I'm likable to do. So he even mentions that there's plenty of times that he himself is seeing things maybe not through the prism that they actually are.
Right. And I think that works to kind of not fully explain away all the ridiculous things we're seeing, but at least give them some sort of explanation, so they like as these ridiculous things continue to unfold. This biker who is completely otherworldly just suddenly appears in the actual movie and fights with him and dies by Nick Cage pulling a grenade off of him, which is the most action movie-ish trope for a ridiculous comedic character. It's so dreamlike, and it's wonderful. It's hilarious. Like that, their whole exchange between the two of them. Like I could not stop laughing.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was actually texting with Matt just to get his idea of what he liked, and one thing he wanted me to mention was the scene where HI is writing the note to Ed when he's decided to leave, and the camera's like constantly panning as he's writing, and then just kind of runs out of things to pan to. So the camera just doesn't know what to do anymore, and I think that fits into their whole style. Like I love that the tone and style of the acting and the plot was matched by how the Coen shot the movie.
Oh yeah, and it completely fits with the person that they have as their director of photography is Barry Sonnenfeld, who of course ends up he only shot like I think it was he did Blood Simple, and then he did this one, and then he basically jumped off on his own, and that's when he went off and did the Addams Family and Men in Black movies.
Oh wow, interesting.
Huh.
But if you look at the camera work in those, it's the same thing where he took
right.
everything. He was kind of hashing everything out with them, and then he's like, okay, I've got it. I'm going on my own now.
Yeah, like I'm thinking right now, I'm imagining scenes from Men in Black, and I'm like, yeah, that's the camera work is very familiar.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is funny with the whole with that tracking shot that he basically has from up above at the beginning of Men in Black is him just furthering things that he used in here, which of course the big scene is actually him ripping off the Sam Raimi POV camera. When Florence, Arizona is waking up to find out that her child's been stolen, and it's zooming through and goes, and it's basically it's the best use of a Raimi POV through whatever shot that's not done in a Raimi movie.
Absolutely. I love that scene. That was hilarious, and the camera even goes up the ladder as if it's climbing it. It's really perfect. So I think, I liked this movie a lot, but I think there are some parts of it that are still kind of recognizable as the Coens still trying to figure out their style. The one scene that I really didn't enjoy at all was when HI is first breaking into the house to steal the babies, or he's trying to pick which baby he likes the most.
The slapstick?
Yeah, well, it just... I like slapstick, and I didn't mind that. I just felt like the scene went on for a long time, and like it gets to a point where you've kind of made your point with what's going on, that he's like juggling all these babies, and it's almost straight out of a cartoon at that point. But I just felt like the scene kind of lingered a little bit too long for me. I mean, I don't know. It's my opinion, but...
I agree that it goes on a little bit too long, but I also like the fact that they play the majority of it silent. Like you don't have any bombastic score, making it playing up the cartoonish aspect of it. You do have a couple sound effects that are with it, but besides those little sound effects, it's mostly the babies cooing and cawing throughout it. That it was interesting because you usually have people play up the ridiculousness of that scene with the score punctuating it. So the fact that it was silent was nice for once, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do like that a scene that, like, I understand that the length of the scene kind of punches up the end joke, which is that he leaves without actually ever getting a baby. After like a 5-minute scene where he's juggling all these kids, he leaves and doesn't actually have one. So if the scene had been a little shorter, that joke might not have landed as hard as it did. Yeah. So I mean, that's a good point. But
I agree. It was definitely like close to being a little too, or like it could have been easily, just obnoxious or loud if he had been like talking or yelling something. But the fact that it was silent and it was almost just kind of the noises the babies made or the different looks they gave him or like the look on his face every time he like went to a different baby or like lost a baby. I thought it made it work pretty well, because I actually did think about that scene just randomly, just because I guess maybe the one thing I will say is that it does go pretty long, but I think it pays off in the fact that he comes out empty-handed.
Yeah.
It works well. And her reaction's great. I mean, she's just not having it.
Freaks out more or less.
Yeah. And that's kind of the first time you see her. Well, I mean, you see her like totally devastated by the news that she can't have kids, but when he comes back without the kid, it's the first time you kind of see
that's
how kind of
crazy
unhinged she actually is.
But that's a great juxtaposition. Is that when? Oh, because I guess we should touch upon it. When she finds out that she's not able to have kids, is in that great 11-minute opening section of the film that's mostly done by narration with some pieces of dialogue added in. That's just this great world building before you even get to the opening credit that splashes across at that 11-minute mark. That it just goes through their entire relationship, everything that's going on with all these characters to set up, and you're just like, okay, this is interesting. Let's go with this. But the Coen brothers just having fun with language, and it's one of those lines that just pops into my head. And there's been, I can't remember what movie it is, but there's been like 2 other movies within the last 2-3 years that have had variations on the line, where when they go to it, they're showing, of course, for the people who don't know, first of all, you should see this movie because it's fantastic. But
if you're listening and you haven't seen the movie, press pause right now. Go watch the movie. It's on HBO Go. Just go.
Definitely.
But when he's going through it, he's got the great bit where he says, this woman who looked as fertile as the Tennessee Valley could not bear children. The doctor told me that her insides were a rocky place where my seed could heed no purchase. And it's just always stayed with me. There was some movie, I can't remember, it's going to bother me, but there was some movie that came out within the last 2 years that had a variation on describing that somebody was infertile along those lines. And I'm like, no. You just stole that from the Coen.
Oh, man.
And see, I'm such a sucker for voiceover. Like, I know it's kind of generally, like, schlocky and poor screenwriting to use voiceover. I love it, especially when it's used well. And you're absolutely right. It's used so well here, and it's just the language they write with. That it's just like they're playing with words, and they're defining all these characters just through HI's wonderful use of language, which is he almost feel like any Coen movies. The protagonist almost doesn't feel real because like he's a poor guy that lives in a trailer, and he speaks in just such like flowery, elegant prose. But mix that with his accent, and it just makes this unreal character who you can't help but kind of love because he's your typical blue collar guy, but talks in this really educated, elegant way that is just so fun to listen to.
Well, the funny thing about it is that he ends up being one of the most normal people in the entire movie because everyone else is just at a higher level, because we haven't even mentioned my favorite character in the entire movie of one Nathan Arizona. and the fact that it's just every time I see the movie I laugh inside me because there's never a point, save for the FBI agent who just asks him to confirm some information, that nobody calls him on the fact that his line that he always says is the fact that and you can't find a better deal, or his name's not Nathan Arizona, which of course it's not.
Which it isn't, yeah. I loved that reveal. That was so good. And it's done so casually too. Like the Coen's humor, like it doesn't call attention to itself. Like it lets it trusts the audience to get there.
Figure it out, yeah.
That wasn't like a typical punchline and beat where they kind of let the characters like look at him for a second or something to make sure, hey audience, you're supposed to be putting these two things together. It just drops it in there and moves on, and then it lets you figure it out yourself. And it is great. You're right, Nathan Arizona is a great character. And I love I've said the phrase in the typical Coen fashion like 20 times, and I'm gonna keep saying it, but he comes off as this complete scumbag, and he kind of is, but then at the end he's the guy who
who's the wisest.
Yeah, exactly. Like he basically saves their marriage, so we think. Like we don't actually get to see the end. We just, I think HI is one of the most unreliable narrators ever, so we don't know what actually happened or what didn't.
Actually, was a very pleasant kind of twist to his character. Seeing him at the end, and it actually does resonate. I definitely enjoyed like that, that depth that he definitely brought.
Yeah, what I can't remember what he tells them about staying together. I know he finishes with just sleep on it or something, but he says something really cool that I love.
Yeah, he's talking. I'm trying to see if I've got it in my page of notes. But when he's talking to them, he tries to find out what the problem they have is and everything, and he says that staying together is the most important thing because he knows that he would never be able to get by if he'd lost his wife.
That was it.
And then he just says, "I do love her so," and then that's when he starts to walk out. And it's great, but to your point where you said about High being an unreliable narrator, there's actually a couple hints within the movie that they're going to be absolutely okay, and that vision that he has of all the kids and grandkids coming to visit them is actually something that's going to happen. Is the fact that another one of the great side characters of Glenn and Dot is. Glenn asks how they were able to get a kid so fast, because of course they're passing off to everybody that they adopted this kid magically somehow. But Glenn's asking how he was able to get the kid so fast because he's got a problem with his sperm, which he mentions 3 different times in the conversation. But the fact that he's got a brood of like 6 children that are all running around. And at the end with Nathan Arizona talking to him, of course, they've got the quintuplets. And HI, of course, has mentioned their situation that they can't have kids. And Nathan doesn't really go into it, but he hints that they were the exact same way and that something was wrong with them. And he says, you just keep on trying. And then nature kind of finds its way, as it did with us, with a vengeance. So you've got these 2 couples that have both been in situations where somebody in the relationship has something wrong with them, basically, that they may not be able to have kids, and they just keep on going on with their life and trying, and then they end up with all these kids. So it's kind of saying, hey, this part right here might be real because you've seen all these other people who've been in the same situation with them who end up fine in their own way, basically.
Yeah, that's a really good catch. I didn't catch up on that. That's a really good point. Man, this movie makes me so happy. It just makes me smile.
And whistle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably like the only time you're smiling during a child kidnapping.
Right, isn't it like
it doesn't take away from the story at all. It's you're almost rooting for him, you know?
Yeah. So can we talk about the Snotes brothers real quick? Because we briefly touched on them, but
absolutely.
they are so wonderful. I like the repeat joke with them forgetting the baby in the road is just like it worked gangbusters on me. I could not stop laughing at that scene.
You never leave a man behind.
Yeah. which is the second time they've done it.
Yeah.
And they're like, again, this is classic Coens and how they take these characters who are convicts, are escaped convicts, are kind of scumbags, but they're just so like endearing and lovable. Like they're more like children themselves, and how they act off each other. And I think, that this movie is about people who want children, or how all these different groups of people are affected by children. But it's also really about relationships between people, and their relationship is just so perfect in that like they both like give each other shit all the time, but you can both tell they both really care about each other too, and how they interact with each other. And I love it so much.
Yeah, and that's what I wrote down, is that the great thing about it, with like, it's got so many themes that are running through it that and I even wrote, it's pretty heady themes for the subject matter of a comedy, to have it be about fathers, child rearing, abandonment, masculinity, family, moral codes, and of course to put it in High's words himself, what's right, and then there's what's right.
Yeah.
But the Snows brothers are great just because of their interplay, and of course the way that you see them. At the first moment they really burst onto the screen is not at the very, very beginning, but then their escape, in which they're just screaming in the mud and the rain, and John Goodman's just yelling the whole time while picking up William Forsythe by the foot through the mud. and yet somehow the next day when the police are taking a look at it, it's just a perfect square in the ground that they came out.
Yeah. Well, and I love that they go back to the screaming joke. Like that's what these characters do. Like they just scream for like the longest amount of time. And that's one time where I didn't mind the screaming or the length of a scene was like how like when the first time they realized that Nathan Jr. is missing. And just the lengthy scream when they basically realize it, turn around, and like the scene lets it play out as they drive probably in real time all the way back to where they left the kid. And
Yeah, it is in basically real time because the old timer that the younger Snoke's brother tells to get on the ground and
he's counting
count back. And he gets up because he gets to 726 and he goes bullshit and stands up and sees them coming back, shakes his head and then goes back down. And even when it goes outside of the store, you can still hear him counting while they're picking up the kid.
Yeah. Oh man, like talking about this movie is making me like it even more, which is great.
The funny thing that I'm picking up is because you mentioned that you feel bad continually using this phrase about the Coen brothers in typical Coen fashion. When the funny thing is, this is their second movie, so this is where they're introducing all these ideas because, of course, their first film is really, really dark and it's soaked in that noir feeling, and then they go to this. And the funny thing about this movie is the fact that and I'm trying to find the exact quote because, of course, they're the Coens, so they do very few interviews. So if you find a quote from them, you kind of hold on to it. But on doing this film, they said that they wanted to do something that was the complete tonal opposite, that was optimistic and upbeat compared to Blood Simple. And they said, it's like a real cheap and shameless bid at making a commercial movie. We decided to sell out, and that was the first decision.
Wow.
That's so crazy to me that they called this selling out because this is unlike any kind of comedy I've ever seen before. I mean,
to them, it's selling out.
Yeah, you can tell it's like tapping into some of the slapstick humor of earlier comedies. You can tell it's kind of tapping into stuff like that. But this is this being selling out to the Coens is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Well, for them, it kind of was because after they did Blood Simple, they were kind of given carte blanche to whatever movie they wanted to do.
Right.
And the movie that they actually wanted to make, that they already had a script for, was The Hudsucker Proxy. And they told their producers at Circle Pictures and said, "Hey, this is what we want to do. It's going to cost $40 million." And the producer said, "No. What else do you have?" So they went and they put this together and they budgeted out for about $5 million. And they say, "Okay, yeah, we'll give you that."
Yeah, this was a pretty cheap movie, wasn't it? Did they make that? Did they hit that $5 million target?
Oh yeah, they made well past it. I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was like in the around 20s. So it ended up being a little hit for them just because of the fact that they ended up having it cost a lot less. Of course, they go on and they do Hudsucker Proxy years later and lose money on it.
Yeah.
But I'll still defend the movie. I know there's plenty of people who dislike it, but I still enjoy it for what it is.
I haven't seen that one forever. I wouldn't even feel safe talking about it.
Well, it's very much. Of course, to go back to in typical Coen fashion, in this movie, they were really drawing from they really love Preston Sturges films, so they were tapping into that with this, and also their love for Southern writers like Flann O'Connor and William Faulkner, which is where the Snotes brothers actually come from. And
I was going to mention Faulkner.
The antithesis of their love for Preston Sturges and Frank Capra is basically what ends up going into the Hudsucker Proxy years later, which is actually the company that H.I. works for, because he's on his apron that he's wearing when he's drilling the bits in the steel actually says Hudsucker Industries on it.
Oh, I didn't even catch that. That's cool. All right, so I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. If we have a rule, and it's a loose rule, but we have a one film per director rule that we've already basically broken because the first film we put in was by Steven Spielberg, and there's no way in hell we're not putting another Steven Spielberg movie in this thing. But let's just pretend for a sec that if we put this movie in, this is the only Coen Brothers movie. Would you feel comfortable with that as this the best representation of the Coens?
I believe so, just because it's so early and it's such a distillation of the things that they do in the future, that the elements of all their other films are kind of starting here. Yes, they do get darker in lots of those films, but the way the characters interact with each other and have that humor underneath everything is very much here. At the same time, I was curious because you guys kind of felt like you were going in this direction when you were talking about it last for Jaws, and I wondered if it was something you guys were thinking about doing in the future. So I wanted just to mention to see if I was on the same wavelength or if it's an idea that you'd be interested in. For certain people like the Coens who have such diverse films, if somebody who has a really, really good argument, clearly better than mine in the future, to suggest one is have it be pitted directly against that film, and then if that movie is voted in, then the other one goes out. So let's say this one somehow gets in, and like several months from now somebody goes, you know what, while I like Raising Arizona, screw that guy, it should definitely be Fargo, and has a great impassioned discussion. You guys are like, you know what, Fargo should be it. If for some reason Fargo gets voted in, then Racing Arizona would come out. If it's for the same director, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I completely forgot we had that conversation. That's what one month does to my brain. But yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think that's something, if we ever get there, that's something we can look into for sure as a good idea. Because I think that would be an interesting episode too, is pitting two movies from one director against each other.
Well, because I know that if there's going to be a Coen Brothers film that somebody's going to put up against this to be like, no, this is the clear one. It's Fargo, just because it's the one that the largest majority of people have seen, and then because of the fact that you've already had 2 seasons of the TV show that launches off from that area, that it's the one that's on the tip of everyone's tongue, regardless if they've seen any other ones. Fargo is the one that penetrates everybody's mind.
Yeah.
But I don't think you have a Fargo unless you have Raising Arizona.
And I think that's a really fair point. Yeah. I think, one of the things I have been doing lately is going back and looking at the early films of filmmakers I really like. And it is really cool to see there are some that you can tell have not gotten their voice yet. But there are some like these, like the Coen brothers with this movie, that their voice seems so fully formed in this movie.
It really did.
And yeah, they did some tightening up. You can tell they've gotten better at filmmaking overall. But that just what they want to do and their style and how they do it has really kind of almost came out fully formed, which is incredible.
Agreed.
All right. So, Gentry, do you have any last words you want to say before we move to a vote?
No, I mean, I think I've definitely enjoyed listening to you guys. You're actually learning a lot, just about the Coens in general. I don't have really anything else to add. I'm very happy that I have this one under my belt, considering some of the ones that I have not been able to see. I honestly, I did not expect to enjoy it that much. I guess, and knowing that it was kind of their early work, I honestly, basically what you just said, didn't expect them to be, their craft so honed at that time. It's incredible, it's amazing that it's spanning, over 2.5 decades, 3 decades really.
Yeah, it's been almost
at
30
this point.
years since this movie.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I love their style. I'm excited to not only watch this again, but to try to really tackle some of their other films and kind of really, dig into, some of the underlying meanings behind them. But yeah, no, I don't really have anything else. I think we're good.
What is your favorite Coen movie, if you had to pick one?
At the moment, because I mean, like I said, I haven't seen Fargo, Burn After Reading. Blood Simple. A lot of these more obscure ones I haven't seen, but I would say Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is probably my favorite.
I like that movie a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, Big Lebowski's like every, one of the more popular ones, but yeah.
It's funny, we did a podcast on the Coen brothers right before Hail Caesar came out, and we only talked about 3 movies. We talked about Fargo, of course. We talked about Oh Brother, and we talked about Big Lebowski. And it's funny, like at the time, I didn't even think of talking about this movie because when I thought about this movie, I thought of this as, and I hate the phrase minor director name. Like I hate when people say minor Spielberg. That drives me insane. But I did consider it like minor Coen's, and I'm so glad I got to revisit it because that's not true at all to me.
No. I feel like it'll just be more enjoyable the more I see it, honestly. And definitely one of those movies where I can probably watch again next week and enjoy it even more than I just saw it. So
yeah, it's one of those that's really rewatchable, I think.
There's so many little moments that you pick up on or you notice or you realize that you didn't laugh at the first time, and just so many little side characters. Of course, one of my favorite parts of any movie, if I had to do a list of like favorite scenes of all time, just the little reuse in the opening 11-minute section of the parole board that they've got framed just in that tight little shot. So all you see is the 3 people on one side, High on the other, and the table in the minute, and the guy who basically says very few things save for okay then each time. But the first time that he's in there, and I noticed it this time, but I had no idea how I didn't pick up on it. But the guy asks him, he goes, "So do you understand what we're saying, High?" And without looking, he goes, "Yes, ma'am, I do." And I've seen this movie at least like 50, 60 times, and I was like, how did I not notice that he calls the guy a woman? Because he just doesn't care.
Wow, yeah, I completely missed that too.
And it's not until they go to try to save Nathan, Arizona, at the end of the movie that High has any bullets in his gun. That's his little thing, that anytime he robs any place, he never does it with a loaded weapon.
Yeah, well, and like any other character, you could just say, oh, he's doing it to avoid the assault with a deadly weapon charge. But I don't think that's why he's doing it. I think because he has no desire to actually hurt anyone. Like is like, which is why it's kind of so shocking when he,
which he states,
blows up when he blows up the guy. But yeah,
he apologizes too.
Yeah, he's just he's just the nicest guy, and he's just a down on his luck, really well-meaning criminal. And I just love his character so much. I can't. Kevin Costner, like that blows my mind. This would be an awful movie.
It just
3 times he really wanted. That's what I was surprised. Like, it didn't just say, oh, they offered it to the part. That he auditioned 3 times. Yeah. So he was convinced he was going to get this.
Wow, I can't believe that. So Adrian, is this your? I guess this is your favorite Coen. Do you have one that you actually kind of like better, but you think this one just fits better?
1 or number 2. It's just so difficult because there's so many good Coen brother films that I just want to say, I love them. But it's basically it's one of those where you have a caveat. It's like, yeah, I love all the Coen brothers films, save for Intolerable Cruelty and The Lady Killers. But even Intolerable Cruelty has great Coen brothers moments throughout it. That is just
it does.
It's The Lady Killers is the only one that I would throw to the curb because it's one of those remakes that never needed to really be done.
What did you think of Hail Caesar? Because there was, I loved it, but there were pretty
I thought it was great.
Mixed reception on it.
I think it's just because the Coen brothers do so many different types of films, but there's only a handful of their product that people are really well versed in or have seen, like the general audience. And because of the fact that so many movies nowadays have to cater to the general audience, it takes somebody like the Coen brothers to be like, you know what, we're just going to do this weird movie that we want to do, and we don't really care if it doesn't make any money because they're able to put this out. I mean, it's just they did Hail Caesar, but then you have to remember that just a couple of years ago they did Llewellyn Davis. So
I love that movie,
but it's just they're just so different, and they keep on trying to change what their next movie is going to be. They don't want it to be stuck in that same vein. They'll still have the same type of characters and the same type of arcs and journeys for them, but the genre and the world that these characters live in are always completely different than what they did before, basically.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, and I think some of the pushback to Hail Caesar specifically was the trailer really sold it as something that it was not. The trailer really pushed hard this whole ransom plot and made it seem like it was all to do with the kidnapping, and that's really not what the film's about at all. So I mean, give props to the trailer guys who had to take a movie that is really just specifically about this movie producer and his love of the industry and all the problems he has to deal with, and had to construct a trailer that tries to quickly tell some sort of plot.
You mean the marketing department that said, how many more shots of Channing Tatum can we put in there?
Yes, that same one. But yeah, they really made it seem like this was, and I think it's fair because you're right. Most people hear Coen's and they think Fargo, and Fargo's a kidnapping story, so we're going to lean into the kidnapping and ransom plot of this movie when that wasn't it at all. So people go thinking it's going to be a Fargo-ish type of movie, and it was not at all. So yeah, they come out disappointed, and then the movie doesn't have a good cinema score, and then everyone freaks out. And I'm sitting here thinking, what's wrong with you people? This movie's incredible. All right, are we ready? Gentry, are you ready to vote?
Yes, ready to go.
All right. Gentry, go ahead. Yes or no? Unless, do you want to give one last, should we give Adrian one last closing remark
for sure.
before
Absolutely.
we do it?
Oh, great.
Your closing statement, sir?
We've hit upon lots of the stuff that's great about the film, not just as a movie itself, but then what it means to these directors and what it means to their whole career, and the fact that, like I mentioned, this was their idea of selling out, and it's a film that really lays the groundwork for everything that they do in the future, and you can really see them honing their craft and just loving what they're doing and just having a joy with it. So the best thing I can really do is just go back to the full quote from H.I. of saying, there's what's right, and then there's what's right, and never the twain shall meet.
So which one is voting yes for this? Is it what's right or what's right?
Oh, it's what's right.
All right, great. Gentry, why don't you go ahead and let us know what your decision is, sir?
I'm going to say yes. Definitely. Simply put, yeah. I very much enjoyed it. I think it could become one of my favorites, really. I liked Adrian's arguments. I thought you guys had a very very, very solid back and forth, and really made some of the elements pop that really kind of stuck with me, and I agree with it. So I'm going to say yes, and excited to have Adrian kick me off the council, and
Hey man, I haven't voted yet.
Oh, sorry.
You're jumping the gun.
Yeah, of course.
No, so I think this was actually, as much as I've been talking about this movie and a glowing review of it from me, this was actually really tough for me because I think Inside Llewyn Davis is still probably my favorite Coen Brothers movie. I think it's a masterpiece. I love that movie so much. But I am going to vote yes. And I'm going to vote yes specifically because of what you said, Adrian, on how this really just lays the groundwork for everything else they've done. And the line that really...
I thought I was going to be the cat for a second.
The line that really got to me was when you said there might not have been a Fargo without this movie. And I think that's absolutely true. And not just in that they wouldn't have made a name for themselves, but in that if they didn't go through the motions in this and learn and grow as filmmakers, they would not have been able to make Fargo, which means they would not have been able to make any of the other movies, and Inside Llewyn Davis itself might not have been the masterpiece that it is. So that is why I vote yes. So even without Matt, it is in. Should I tell you guys what Matt was going to vote? Should I do
Absolutely.
it? Should I reveal it?
Yeah.
So Matt told me that unless Adrian had a really convincing argument as to why this Coen movie in particular, he was going to vote no. And we'll never know. Well, I guess we can when he's back. When he's back, he can tell us because he's going to listen to this, and he can tell us if your argument would have swayed him one way or the other. But it doesn't matter because Raising Arizona is in the Kryptonian Collection.
I like it. Yeah.
So you're out, Gentry. You're out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Well, you might not be out
Been
because
right.
Matt might have to take an extended sabbatical from the podcast to be a new father, because that apparently is a lot of work or something. I don't know.
Otherwise, you'll be able to start building your case for, what was it, the negotiator, you said?
That's right.
You're going to need a chalkboard for that, probably.
Oh, I'm so glad you remembered that.
So I think next month's one, I have a buddy, Chad, who, just to piss me off, is going to nominate Armageddon, I think.
Oh my god.
Dear Lord.
So I told him he's free to do that, but he's got his work cut out for him, and I'm afraid his argument is not going to be as succinct and well put and convincing as yours, Adrian. And he's already starting from a way further away spot. So we will see on that. I don't know. He might end up backing out or picking something else.
I want him to go for it, because that means that I can rewatch it and either completely fall in love with it with brand new eyes after not seeing it for years, or just be completely irate and angry. So,
see, here's my thing. I think Michael Bay is a talented filmmaker who doesn't make good movies. He can, like, I love Pain and Gain. I think he really, everything he does.
It's like the saddest thing I've heard all night.
What?
That he's so talented and just doesn't make good movies.
Well, but the thing about Michael Bay is he does his particular style, and he works
and it's
his over-the-top ridiculousness in every film he does, even when it's not appropriate.
Yeah.
So when it works, it works.
It works enough to, for me to give him, enough money for half his films. So yeah, I guess he's doing something right. Unbelievable. But that's funny that to hear his name, so early. But it's also kind of throws a nice little giant wrench in the whole thing, and let's
we've got like probably
change it up a little bit.
200 directors I'd put in there over Michael Bay.
It's fantastic.
And yet our third episode is going to be a Michael Bay movie. Damn it,
what
Chad!
You call the change up.
At least he wasn't like, hey, let's do The Island. Let's have The Island be the one we dig into.
Bad Boys 2.
I could, depending upon the day, I could side with Bad Boys 2.
I love that movie so much. It's not a good movie. It's not a good movie at all. But there's
Bad Boys 2? I mean, I like Bad Boys probably better than 2.
No, Bad Boys 2 is just just
insane.
It
I mean,
really is.
Well, yeah.
The choices made in that movie are like mind-boggling, and yet I love it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because my favorite story behind that one is when he was filming the car chase scene on the highway. And somebody was like, we're worried that we're going to destroy one of the cameras because we're getting way too close from the cars that are falling down. And Michael Bay said, screw it. If you have to destroy the camera, we're getting the shot. Just destroy the camera.
Shit. At least goes all out. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he does. He
goes big budget. Just, yeah.
Adrian, did you see 13 Hours?
No, I haven't. I'm going to rent it this week. Everybody's been pushing to watch it like the last 2 weeks, and I'm like, you know what? I'll give it a chance. I think it's more so. It's not even Michael Bay that was pushing me from it. It's seeing what's his face,
Krasinski.
Seeing Krasinski and said, it's like, hey, look, I've got a beard now. That means I'm serious.
John Krasinski as a Navy SEAL seemed a little different.
No,
that's still. But it was nice to see him in something besides essentially being a stay-at-home dad to his kids from his beautiful wife. So
Truth.
It's a good change of pace from him.
He doesn't pull it off. I think he's the weakest part of the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, then screw it. I'm not going to watch it.
Well, no, I think it's worth watching because I think it has both the best and the worst of Michael Bay all in one film. And I think it's kind of crazy how both political and apolitical it gets. Like, and maybe this is just my political viewpoints coloring my opinion of the film, but I think it's very easy to make a movie here that specifically attacks certain people in an administration, and that's not what this movie does at all. It kind of attacks the American government as a whole, Like, and that's kind of very much Michael Bay, which is, I think it's weird when people say he's very pro like government and pro right wing conservatism, because he's really more for like the common man. Like he doesn't like the army, he likes the soldiers. He doesn't like the government, he likes the blue collar workers, and that I think is a move where 13 Hours falls in. Like he has tons of respect for the actual soldiers that were on the field and hates everyone that sent them there.
Fair.
Okay.
But we are totally off track. This is what happens. This is why we go for an hour and a half suddenly when we shouldn't. But okay, so that's it. So Raising Arizona, it's in the collection. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Next week, I don't know what we're doing. Gentry, you're probably going to be here because Matt won't. We're probably going to talk about Game of Thrones, I would guess, because it's ending this weekend.
It's his last episode.
And
that can be arranged.
We will probably be negative about the season. I'm trying so hard to be positive.
I have a lot of. I still got to do my. Top 30 things I loved about this season? You know.
Yes.
I'm gonna try to spice it up a little bit.
Adrian, we do like the three of us, me, Matt, and Gentry get together and do like a Slack conversation that we just copy paste and drop into a post that we publish on our website. That's just us talking about it. And the last like 2 episodes, we've been so negative, and like I post it, and I get tons of people like yelling at me and telling me I'm like being too critical.
It's great.
Well, no, I come down on your guys' side, because my fiance and I we watched the last 2 episodes back to back, and when we got done with the first one, she goes, should we just watch the next one? I'm like, well, we have to.
It's got, and I don't want to spoil our conversation next week, but the writing is not very good.
That's been very splotchy this season.
It's such a well directed show. It's wonderfully directed. I have nothing but respect for the people working on the show, but I don't know whether they just use this season to like kill time, hoping that George would finish the other book or something. But nothing happens in this season. No plots actually move.
It's a Mad Lib, basically, this season, is the way that I kind of view it. And they're like, oh, hey, guess what? We've got this exciting thing that happened. And now you're not going to see it for the next 3 hours. But remember, here's a 15-second shot of a dragon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Like, really not a whole lot has actually happened. Like, it's really just where this last episode finished is basically where the books are about to leave off.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel like this was supposed to be the season that moved away from the books, and I feel like
they just,
if anything, we're like 2 chapters into Winds of Winter, and that's how far things have gone.
No, absolutely.
But remember, Raising Arizona is a great film.
Yes.
Shit, we did it again. We got off topic again. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Adrian, thanks so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun, and
absolutely,
we will be seeing you again because now you get a vote in whatever the next movie is.
That's right.
So that's exciting. If you want to come back, you don't have to.
Oh, absolutely.
But we absolutely want you back because I think this was a great conversation.
So, well, like I said, I definitely, I'm glad to be on here and to get this movie in here. I'll be glad to come back, and then if for some reason it does end up being Armageddon and we're all just really, really tired and we manage to say yes somehow, then that means that I can go off and find a more esoteric and weird movie to
right as Chad starts to play Aerosmith in the background.
The weirdest part about Armageddon is how often Liv Tyler's father is singing while Ben Affleck is doing sexual things to her.
So strange.
All right. Well, Adrian, do you have anywhere you want to plug anything you do?
Not at this moment. I'm getting ready to do a couple things and writing for a blog for the heck of it for VOD titles, but I've just been busy with a whole bunch of things with that, but I'm going to finally put it up. Twitter is where I kind of am sometimes. You can look for Adrian Torres, and if you come across an icon of Rutger Hauer with a pigeon on his head,
is that what your picture is?
Yes, it's from the movie Split Second from 1993. It is a
What?
it's a horrible sci-fi futuristic dystopian apocalyptic film that has maybe 3 locations. Also features a screaming Kim Cattrall.
Oh man.
Directly after she was in Star Trek, she still has the same haircut and everything. And the movie is horrible and brilliant at the same time. And the music cue and refrain that's used the most in the movie is the refrain from Nights in White Satin.
What?
Yes.
I have to find this movie now.
Exactly. But yeah, that's what it is. My Twitter handle is Xabiche01.
We're gonna put that in the show notes because I don't
Yeah,
know if
'cause
anyone's gonna be able to spell that.
it's from, for anybody that's a movie nerd out there. It's from Dead Man by Jim Jarmusch. It's the Indian nobody. It's what his actual name is. He says it's Xabiche, which means he who speaks loudly saying nothing.
All right, yeah, that's further into movies than even I am, so I'm impressed. Gentry, how about you? Where can you be found on the internet?
Just the Twitter handle wench tweet, and that's pretty much it.
Your Twitter handle is my favorite Twitter handle of all time.
That's a great one.
All right, I am also on Twitter at ScottDaily85. That's DALY. Our website Twitter is at Daily Planet Films, and that's where all of our writing is, even though I haven't been doing near enough of it lately. That's going to change, I think. Redoubling my efforts to actually like review movies and talk about them again, which I haven't done in weeks. But that's where you can find all that at dailyplanetfilms.com. And again, Adrian, thanks for being here. We really enjoyed you on. Gentry, as always, thank you for jumping in.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And we will see you all next week.
Podcast is over, it's done. We hope you all had some fun. Go back to your work or your school, maybe the gym. Hey, that's cool. Regardless, just go away. But please come back next Friday, there'll be